Hey, I'm Camila Stevenson, and around here we talk wealth. And today I want to talk about something that even people who understand the markets aren't considering. Most conversations right now are very obsessed with what money is going to be. Is it crypto? Is it fiat? Is it digital? Is it tokenized? But I don't think that's the most important question. The real question is who controls the rails that money moves on? Because throughout history, power has never belonged to people who talk the loudest about money. It belonged to the people who controlled how money moved. And so that's the lens that I want to introduce today so you can start understanding where the future of money is headed. Now, I want to say right now, this is not financial advice. I'm not telling you what to buy based off this information. It is only for educational and entertainment purposes. Do your own due diligence in understanding how money moves, how it operates, and how it's going to connect to your overall strategy for the future. Make sure you hit that thumbs up, like the video, because it does help the page. And if you are not subscribed, go ahead and subscribe and comment and let me know, where are you putting your money most right now? Is it crypto? Is it commodities? Is it the stock market? I'd love to hear what you're financially thinking through. All right, so let's address why people are obsessing over the wrong thing. And I think this is a point of distraction for most people. So retail focuses on price, media focuses on narratives, and social platforms focus on hype. Everyone argues about whether an asset is good or bad, whether it's going up or down, whether it's the future or a scam. But institutions do not look at markets that way. They don't start with price, they start with flow. So they care about what clears transactions, who settles trades, who provides liquidity, and who decides what's fast, slow, cheap, or expensive. Price is just the output of those decisions. If you control the rails, you don't need to guess where price is going. You influence the conditions that price reacts to. That's why focusing only on asset misses the bigger picture. You can have the right asset and still be early, late, or sidelined depending on where it sits in the system. This is also why so many people feel like they're constantly reacting instead of positioning. They're watching the scoreboard, not the game. And when you start paying attention to the rails instead of the noise, you realize something very important. The biggest shifts in finance don't happen when price moves. They happen when infrastructure changes. And then the price follows later. Now, I have to explain what the rails actually are. So when I say rails, I'm not talking about anything abstract. Rails are simply the pathways money moves on. They're the systems that decide how payments are sent, how transactions settle, how long finality takes, who can access liquidity, and what gets delayed, blocked, or prioritized. If you ever sent a wire and waited days, if you ever had a payment frozen, or if you ever wondered why something cleared but wasn't actually settled yet, you've interacted with the rails. Most people assume that money just moves, but it doesn't. It moves through layers: clearing, settlement, custody, liquidity, provisioning, all governed by rules that most people never see. And here's the key point. Whoever controls the rails controls the speed, the cost, and the permission structure of the entire system. And that's real power. You can change currencies, you can rename assets, but if the rails stay the same, the system behaves the same. That's why institutions care far more about settlement, custody, and flow than they do about price charts. Price reacts to rails, not the other way around. Now, let me introduce a concept of how control has always worked in this. Throughout history, power in finance has never come from owning the money itself. It comes from controlling how money moves. Think about it. When money was tied to gold, power didn't belong to everyone who held gold. It belonged to the institutions that stored it, verified it, and settled claims against it. Later, when banking expanded, power shifted to clearinghouses and central banks. These are the entities that decided whose transactions cleared, when they cleared, and under what conditions. More recently, global finance has run on systems like correspondent banking networks and messaging layers. Again, not exciting, but incredibly powerful. Because if you can slow transactions, block them, prioritize them, or make them expensive, You influence behavior without ever touching price. And that is the pattern. Control the rails, and you don't need to control every asset. The system will organize itself around the rails you manage. This is why changes in infrastructure matter so much more than changes in labels. You can rename money, you can rebrand assets, you can introduce new instruments. But when the rails change, the rules change. And historically, those shifts don't happen loudly. They happen in technical documents, pilot programs, and back end upgrades long before the public ever notices. By the time people start debating what it means, the control layer is already in place. Now let's talk about who's competing for the new rails, right? Because this is where we go from theory to reality, because the new rails aren't hypothetical. They're being built right now, and multiple players are competing to shape them. First, you have governments and central banks. Their priority is control and stability. They want rails that are fast and efficient, but still enforceable. That's why you see interest in things like digital currencies, stablecoin regulation, and payment modernization. They don't want chaos. They want upgraded infrastructure that keeps the existing system intact, just more efficient. Second, you have large banks and financial institutions. They're already at the center of the old rails, so their goal isn't disruption, it's adaptation. They're invested in custody, tokenization, settlement upgrades, and interoperability because they understand something important. If they don't plug into the new rails, they get routed around. Third, you have payment networks and technology companies. Their focus is speed, scale, and user experience. They don't care about legacy structures, they care about throughput. If money can move faster, cheaper, and more reliable on new rails, they'll build on top of those rails regardless of who owned the old ones. And then finally, you have blockchain based settlement layers. These aren't competing on brand or hype, they're competing on function. Can they settle instantly? Can they operate 24/7? Can they handle global liquidity? Can they integrate with existing systems? That's the real competition. This isn't one company winning everything. It's a re-architecture of how value moves. Different players are positioning themselves at different layers like issuance, settlement, custody, liquidity, compliance. And the outcome will not be decided by popularity. It will be decided by which rails institutions actually rely on when scale and pressure increase. Now, I just want to say this because most people realize they've been paying attention to the wrong layer. Most education focuses on assets and opinions, very little focus on structure. That's why I often recommend Stock Up University. It teaches you how markets actually work, how money moves, how systems are built, how incentives shape outcomes, so that you're educated enough, you're intelligent enough, and you're not just relying on anything that anybody tells you. I want you to know that I've gone through it, and it's one of the clearest ways I've seen to learn how to think institutionally instead of emotionally. If you want that foundation, the link is in the description. Use the code EARN for the discount. Now, let's peel the layers behind the scene, and I want you to know why this is happening very quietly. There is a reason that most people don't notice these changes while they're happening. Infrastructure never just announces itself. The most powerful shifts in finance don't just show up as these price spikes or headlines or dramatic introductions, right? They show up as pilot programs, back-end upgrades, regulatory guidance, technical standards quietly being agreed on. That's intentional. If you control rails, you don't need public excitement. You need reliability. You need systems to work before anyone debates them. This is why public conversations lag reality. People argue about what money should be while institutions focus on what money has to do. And by the time the public conversation catches up, the plumbing is already installed. And I want to continue to say that because I think people will be late to this transition. And I want to lay it out what's happening behind closed doors. This is also why transition feels very confusing in real time. It is because nothing looks dramatic or final, but behaviors change. Settlement gets faster, permission shifts, cost move, access changes. And then one day people look back and realize the system they're using isn't the same one they grew up with. That's how control changes hands in modern finance, not with announcements, but with upgrades. And that's why I am long on fast settlement utility coins. This is why I even personally love XRP. I'm not telling you to love it. Nothing I say is financial advice, but I understand the utilization that this asset brings to the financial infrastructure. Now, what does this mean for you? Let me just say now, it does not mean that you need to predict who wins the new rails. And it doesn't mean that you need to chase every new technology that pops up. What it does mean is that orientation matters. If you understand that power in finance flows through infrastructure, not headlines again, then you're going to stop reacting to all this noise and start paying real attention to the direction. It's time to do your due diligence. It's time to understand the utilization and the adoption mechanisms that these coins will have. And you have to start noticing where money moves faster, where friction disappears, where access improves, and where the system quietly routes around old bottlenecks. People get caught off guard during transitions like this, not because they were careless, but because they assumed nothing fundamental was changing. Listen, awareness will give you options, but confusion takes them away. That's why you have to get educated and don't make decisions just based off of hype or based off of just price movement alone. You need to engage in the micro environments because they're going to affect some of these utility coins. And I get it. You want excitement, you want hype, you want movement. But let me tell you something, it's not a time to gamble. Everything is changing with the adoption and with the financial infrastructure. You have to follow the liquidity. You have to understand where these things are headed in the future of our financial system. And the goal isn't to be early for the sake of being early. It is to be informed enough to move calmly, to move intentionally and without fear as the system evolves. And it is evolving very quickly. And I want to also say, just understand, I am not advocating that we're getting rid of the old. That's not what I'm doing. I'm just saying that there will be a heavier reliance upon the new system. So it is very important to get educated on the new system and the new ways that money will move, remember, at scale. Because if there are any limitations with where money needs to go and where the demands are, then we will run into needing something that can solve that particular problem. And guess what? There is a solution that already exists. Now, if you want to know more about my coaching ecosystem, we focus on helping people to think very clearly and learning how to adapt intelligently and build real resilience around finances and your ability to build wealth. We check your portfolio. We help you to understand exactly the blueprint that you should be building for you and your future. And there are some shifts happening because I'm all about building a strategy that actually fits the environment that we're in. So I'm continuing to upgrade the program with more structure, more support, more depth. And there's a lot of new rollouts coming out. And I couldn't be happier to help so many people be able to build the right infrastructure for their success, for their personal success, right? Now, if this conversation resonates with you, the link is in the description. And if this video helped you to see the system a little differently, please go ahead and hit that like button. It does help the video, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Drop a comment and let me know your thoughts about this conversation. Do you feel like I missed something? Is there something that you want to add to the conversation? I would love to hear about it. And share this video with someone who's trying to make sense of the financial transition that we're in. And as always, I want you to stay wise, stay wealthy, and I'll see you in the next video.